Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. I'm Joe Wilson, the CEO of SorWil Technology Solutions, and today our special guest is Scott Peterson with the Leavenworth City. He's the new Leavenworth City Administrator, not the murderer. Let's just get that out on the table now. I have a bunch of questions about that.
Much younger, much younger. Yes.
Welcome. So, of all the places you could go,
hmm
how did you end up in Leavenworth?
Well, I mean, the boring answer is I saw the job posting,
Uh-huh.
but I'm from the Kansas City area.
Okay.
I grew up in Northeast Johnson County, a little suburb called Fairway, Kansas. Went to Shawnee Mission East High School, so
Okay.
yeah, I'm a local boy at heart. And so my previous job, I was the city administrator for the city of Knob Noster, Missouri, which is only known for being next door to Whiteman Air Force Base,
Yep.
home of the B-2 bomber. So I think the military connection there with Leavenworth being at connected to Fort Leavenworth, and my experience with the Air Force Base really called to me. I thought that would be a good, my experience there would be very beneficial to the community of Leavenworth. And also I really I kind of enjoy that part of my job. I didn't serve in the military myself. So kind of finding, tying component into my public service career and giving back to our folks in the military and our veterans is certainly something that I really enjoyed doing. So that certainly was a big part of it as well. We were, my wife and I are both from Kansas City, and we were looking to get back to the Kansas City metro area. So Leavenworth just it met our match in a lot of fronts. And so we moved out here, and we're really happy. My wife loves it out here. I love it out here. So it's worked out really well.
That's awesome. I know I
Yeah.
talked to a few of the commissioners. They said they had a candidate they were really excited about and they were hoping would accept, and it obviously did. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Welcome to our community.
appreciate it. Yeah.
I've been here since 1985, and I don't know that I want to be anywhere else. I did move away for a few years,
Mm,
moved to New Jersey, and when you're not in Leavenworth, you know you're not in Leavenworth,
right.
especially out on the East Coast.
Yep.
So you've been in the job for how long now? Has it
I
been a
think
year yet?
this is like my 7th month, I think. Yeah.
7th
It'll
month?
be a year in November. So
And you had big shoes to fill. A lot of people were really
yes.
high on Paul Kramer. I know he's out in Johnson County now,
Mhm.
so there was a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, Paul did a great job. He really set me up for success, mostly in his hiring of our senior leadership team. We were really fortunate to have the staff that we have leading our organization. So, and that, yeah, Paul deserves all the credit for that. He really, and I think he was here for almost 12 years total. When he started out as the assistant to the city manager and worked his way up to the city
Wow.
manager. So, he really gave a lot of his career to the city of Leavenworth, and we're really thankful for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. A lot of developments going on in Leavenworth. The big question that I think I people ask me about because they
hmm
know that I'm running for office,
hmm
and people always want somebody's take on everything is obviously core civic.
Right.
You guys have took a beating in court, and you guys have now refiled. I understand.
We refiled in the state court, so we
Okay.
originally filed in federal court. The hang up here, the decisions the judge made, he didn't rule on the merits of the case. He didn't say whether or not the city was right or whether or not Core Civic was right. So there really wasn't any decision for us to really hang our hat on or go one way or the other. He basically ruled that, not an attorney here, but there's a threshold you have to meet to be in federal court where the value of either the property or whatever it is you're arguing over has to be $75,000 or more. I mean, the property is certainly worth more than $75,000. Core Civic has stated that, they're going to make millions in this contract with ICE. So to us, it made sense that it met that threshold. Judge disagreed. That's fine. He certainly knows more about the law than we do, or I do specifically. But he left the door open. He didn't say that the city was right or wrong, or Core Civic was right or wrong. It just said it didn't belong in federal court. So we said, okay, well, we need to get a decision one way or the other because there's still a disagreement on the city's ordinances. So we refiled in state court. We'll discuss this with the city commission tonight and see how they want to proceed. Everything's moving really quickly. Obviously, we're coming up against that June 1st deadline. Where we had agreed with Core Civic, they wouldn't bring any inmates into the facility until then. That date is quickly approaching. So we're just looking to get a decision one way or the other there.
Now, for the city, this isn't about Core Civic and what they're trying to do. It's a question about whether they can do that under the current ordinance.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, again, I've said this many times now. We are not ignorant of the broader national conversation that's going on as related to immigration and with the current administration's priorities in Washington. This is not about that at all. It's kind of getting thrown into that conversation through no efforts of our own. And we understand that. People see this as an opportunity to take a stand one way or the other, but that's not what this city commission is doing. That's not what how the city feels. This is about a special use permit process, which they are more than welcome to apply for. We would love them to continue to do that. We recognize the economic development potential of this property and of their project. We are not fighting immigration. We are not fighting the Trump administration. We have concerns that the last time this facility was opened, there was a significant amount of resources spent on our police department coming out there. Our police department had trouble investigating crimes that were reported there. Crimes that had been or crimes that had occurred would maybe be reported 2-3 days later. The police department had no access to the victims. They couldn't interview people when they were allowed on site. They had weird rules, like they had to take their boots off. We had issues where there's a sewer lift station kind of right outside CoreCivic. They have what's called a grinder pump. It's what it sounds like. If a foreign object gets flushed down the system, the grinder pump is supposed to turn it into mush so it doesn't block the lift station. But the grinder pump malfunctioned quite a bit. As you might imagine, inmates aren't the most protective of infrastructure, so they would flush things that shouldn't have been flushed, and it caused a lot of issues with our lift station. We spent many man hours out there fixing it. Those are all city services that we provide to not just CoreCivic, but to the rest of the Leavenworth community. And if we're spending an inordinate amount of our resources out there at CoreCivic, we're not providing the service at a high enough level elsewhere in the city. And that's why the special use permit process is so important from a city perspective, is it gives us a tool to hold them accountable to those things. Yes, it's great to acknowledge those issues, and CoreCivic has. And it's great for CoreCivic to say, we're going to, fix those issues and work with you on it, be a great community partner. That's excellent. We're glad that they're willing to come to the table and have those conversations. But saying you're going to do it and doing it are two different things. And so if the city has that, the tool in its toolbox to hold them accountable and make sure our resources aren't spent excessively out there, I think that the city commission is well within its right to exercise that responsibility.
But the community, there's a huge outcry against it, especially for how inmates were treated, how officers were treated, the violence level in that. Is Core Civic different now? What's your opinion on that?
I can't speak to how they operate. I haven't been, only been here 7 months, and I didn't see how they operated in the past. I'm operating off of, Chief Kitchens, who knows his stuff and how he feels about things. Brian Faust, our public works director, and the experience that our staff had with, with those issues. Again, CoreCivic has said they're willing to work with us on this. We had memorandums of understanding kind of written out that we were going to present as part of the agreement for approval of a special use permit process. So all of those conversations had already been had. And we felt like we were kind of in a good place to be able to not only approve those things, but then to have some enforcement power on the back end of that. I can't speak to whether or not CoreCivic has changed. Our internal conversations were always great. They were responsive. They listened to our issues, and that was really great. We loved working with them. But at the same time, I think the city would be irresponsible to not make sure that they had that enforcement tool available if things go south. CoreCivic likes to talk about, well, the facility was operated perfectly for 20 some years. It was only the last 18 months that were an issue. And that may be true, but those last 18 months are what we're worried about. Sure. Right. And so we're not just protecting the city today and tomorrow, we're protecting it 18, 20 years from now. And I think, talk to the city commission, talk to the county commission, talk to anybody who's been here a long time. And a lot of the issues we're facing today, not just at CoreCivic, but infrastructure, everything, are a result of people not protecting the future of the community.
Sure.
And so I think that's really important to consider when we're doing here, is we're not talking about just the 4 years of the Trump administration or anything. We're talking about 30 years down the road if this facility, wants to continue opening.
That's a great point. Do you think that the city has a responsibility, if these rumors were true, to protect people from being employed there? Is that the responsibility of the city government, or because what I've been told is that kind of feels like picking winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion there?
I think there are other agencies that are better equipped to enforce something like that. Again, when we're talking about, we're not here to enforce immigration or to discuss, ICE's role in all of this. The city doesn't want to play a part in that. So I would say, I kind of agree. It's not the city's, role to have a say in that, and the city commission shouldn't be looking out for, the hiring practices and all of that. Certainly, we want everybody in the facility to be treated humanely. That's obviously a concern for everybody.
Sure.
We want both inmates and staff to be safe and to be treated well. We want our police department to be able to enforce when those things don't occur, properly, and that something goes wrong. We want to be able to hold people accountable. At the same time, since that immigration portion is involved, and we're talking about people that may be flown to another country or what have you, there may be another agency that's better equipped to enforce some of those things. And we're happy to work with those agencies to ensure compliance.
Great points. Just kind of shifting to development.
Hmm.
A lot of what I hear is our downtown, one time was full of businesses, and when Penny was on, we had this conversation with her as well. What can we do to get back to where we have businesses in our downtown? What can we do to make the barrier to entry much lower so that business will come in? I've talked to somebody who said they were trying to open a business downtown and that they were unable to because there was not enough parking. The parking issue, even though there was a parking lot right
Hmm.
next door to the location they were looking at, that was a barrier for them that they couldn't overcome. What is your thoughts? How can we make it easier for businesses to come into our area?
Well, I think that's actually a great example of kind of some of the issues we're facing here downtown. Because one of the big complaints we also get is that there's too much parking downtown, and that some of those properties could be used for something else. So it's clear you have a differing opinions about how to solve this problem. What we can all agree on is yes, the downtown needs to be refilled, both with commercial and residential uses. Upstairs we have a lot of upstairs, second, third, fourth floors that are not being used. We understand that a huge reason for that is the cost to turn them into residential units that are safe and meet code.
Because the cost of the sprinklers specifically.
That tends to be the largest component. The second component is ADA compliance. If there are staircases that are too narrow, these buildings that were built in the early 1900s or late 1800s, even they were built obviously to different standards now.
Sure.
And the cost of equipping those with proper fire suppression, which is different for a residential use than it is for a commercial, or even ADA compliance, getting ADA people that need that ADA compliance upstairs can be pretty costly too, and we understand all of that. We do have some. Speaking to the residential component, we do have some things in place already that can help with that if you're a business owner or you own one of those properties. We have the neighborhood revitalization program that the city can help provide some funding for that. I would also argue, if you have a plan in place, come talk to the city. We might be able to help you anyways, try to find a solution. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard since I've got here, since I've come to the city, is that there's this perception of the city of kind of an adversarial relationship between the city and the downtown businesses and the property owners. That's something I've really worked hard to change and will continue to do while I'm here. And the city commission has made it clear that's what they would like as well. We want to, we're looking into a business licensing system, but however the system ends up looking, I want to make it more front facing and more efficient for a business owner or a property owner downtown, especially, to come to the city and get everything they need up front. Any service that the city provides, they know what it is, what's expected of them. Inspections. We're not going to show up, knock on your door, and say, "Hey, surprise fire inspection. If you don't pass, we're going to shut you down," or whatever. We want to make it very, customer friendly is the best way of putting it, in that if you're a business owner downtown, even if you have an issue with the city's going to work with you to solve the problem and not make you feel threatened or feel like, we don't want you here, because that's just not the case. And so I think it'll take a community effort. We've we need help from our partners, the Main Street and LCDC and the Chamber, especially downtown. You're talking about Main Street and the Chamber. We need help from them, and I think they're going in the right direction as well. Main Street has put together a whole new program to help with downtown businesses and filling downtown. I think they're going to be a huge help moving forward. They'll be a great resource. I started when I got here. I started this thing we call the Economic Development Roundtable. So it's the city, the CVB, which is the tourism portion of the city, economic development, LCDC, and then we've got the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber, Main Street, and then the county actually just joined us at the last meeting. And we get together and we discuss the issues that we're facing as a community, for economic development, for downtown businesses, for businesses outside of downtown, anything that can bring commercial, retail, or industrial development to the city. We discuss those issues. And the idea behind that is there was always this perception that all these agencies are out there and they're all kind of working, doing their own thing. Nobody knows what the other's doing. And it's to bring us all together and move in one direction. So that way, the chamber has 2 staff members. LCDC has 3 staff members. Main Street has 2 staff members. When you're talking about all these different agencies, we counted combined, there's about 10 staff members to do all of this work. And so instead of us all moving in different directions and not getting anywhere, let's all use our resources, combine them, move in one direction, have the same vision for the city of Leavenworth and the surrounding community, and see what progress we can make there.
So I want to talk more about that, but I want to talk a little bit about the possibility of using RHID
Mhm.
for some of these downtown businesses. Is that a possibility? Is that something that if somebody was interested in revitalizing that, they could use some of that funding there?
As of now, is still a possibility. We are still exploring that. We're also looking at RHID at some of our, suburb division properties that would look for single family housing, but that have some topographical issues. As to the downtown, the question that we haven't answered yet is: can you have an NRA district and an RHID district in the same space?
So,
Um,
can you tell our listeners what is an NRA district?
So NRA is Neighborhood Revitalization
Okay,
Act. It is a program the city already has in place
got it.
where the city provides some funding to support redevelopment, and that applies to both commercial uses and residential uses. So theoretically, you could use the NRA district to work on if you've got a first floor business and you want to do second and third floor residential properties. You could use that for both. The RHID is just for residential.
Got it. Okay.
So then the question is, which tool is the best for the downtown? Can you have both? If not, which one do you pick? And also, we haven't seen a lot of use of our NRA district, and so the question then becomes: are people not using it because it's not the right tool? Are they not using it because they don't know about it, and we need to message it better? And those are all things that we're still trying to answer to make sure we provide the best case for our downtown businesses and residents to really revitalize the downtown.
So one of the things I think, just touching on that a little bit, having been a downtown business years ago,
Mhm.
the what is available, and I've used Main Street funds in the past for a business I had downtown. What is available, what isn't available is always a struggle to get out to those businesses.
Mhm.
Communication is tough, and we have so many avenues of information now: social media, email, mail. You know how how do we do a better job of that? Is that one person's function? Is that everybody's function?
Again, that's one of the primary goals of our economic development roundtable, right? Is it's no matter which of our organizations you go to, they may say, well, actually, that's not what we do here, but here's who does that. I will get you in touch with them. They can help you. I would always, if you're a downtown business owner, I would always encourage your first place to be Main Street. That should be your first stop, no matter what, because Main Street's in contact with the city and they can tell you, hey, the city will, here's your time when you need to go talk to the city about your fire alarm permits or whatever, or your building permits, any of that. Main Street can tell you, when the time has come to have that conversation. I would also, if you're outside of the downtown and but you're looking to open a commercial property or a business, go talk to the chamber. The chamber has the same resources, and they'll be able to tell you when it's time to come talk to the city. Now, you can always have those conversations with the city as early as you want. We'd love to have that conversation with you. Tell you, here's what we would expect from you. But it's always good to have, those corporations that are actually there to serve you, to be in your corner and to help you. And the whole point of this, again, of the Economic Development Roundtable, is that we are here as a team to serve the community and to revitalize not the downtown, not just the downtown, but all of our commercial areas in the city, and really bring growth to the city. And we do that by serving the community together, and not moving in different directions, and understanding the vision that we all have.
That's a great, and I like the idea with that, that ability to get everybody together and see
Mhm.
what they're doing. There's been some talk. We've had a couple of different guests on who say they'd like to see LCDC and the chamber combine into one organization, much like we see in Johnson County.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I see the draw. I guess my concern is if you're if you're worried that there hasn't been enough industrial development in the city, which you have right to think that, and you're worried that the downtown hasn't been filled, and we're struggling with that issue, and you have a right to think that as well. What if you're going to combine both entities? Are you just going to exacerbate both problems? Would be my concern. So if you're going to combine the agencies and then you're going to continue both directions, then what solution does that provide is my question. I'm not saying I'm necessarily against it or for it. I would like to see a plan to put into place why this would improve both of those services. If you're just combining it just to say, well, we're combining our resources, well, both agencies understandably don't have enough resources as it is. So how now you're combining your limited resources and your limited staff, and you're dividing those responsibilities out with even fewer resources. That would be my concern. Now, if it's, hey, we're combining this, it's going to get us access to this different pool of resources and more staff, it will allow us to solve some of these problems, then okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I just don't necessarily think what the purpose of combining both agencies as the status quo would change anything. So I would personally prefer to see that, as we at least make some positive direction in some of the issues we're facing in this community first, and then we can focus about what organizational structure looks like.
That's a great point. And I think in speaking with some of those people, I think they've raised some of the same questions. What is the ultimate end game
Right.
or goal, even if we do combine? Is there a world where all those organizations combine under some director from the city to help kind of focus and guide economic development?
We haven't discussed that. I know that, a couple of our city commissioners have asked us to look into an internal economic development director. I would start by saying
But isn't that Penny's job?
that's where I was headed. Is we in some ways we already have that position.
Mhm.
That is Penny's job. She is our economic development director. She's clearly shown the capability to take on other responsibilities, and so as the assistant city manager, she does other things than just economic development. But she is our go-to person there, and I would also point out an expert in her field at that. So
Great. And I've
yeah,
had the opportunity to work with her on
yeah,
a couple of other boards, grow Leavenworth County,
right,
super smart,
absolutely.
very well versed in what she does.
Yes, she's a great person to lead our economic development efforts here in the city. So now, if we want to, if this commission wants us to add an additional person or whatever, we absolutely will look into that and make it work. As to all combining under one roof under the city, as of now, I don't think that the resources are there. Again, we struggle to meet the resource needs for our own economic development efforts, and so for the same reason that I would caution combining some of these other agencies, you would run into the same problem by putting them under the city. Again, I think each agency kind of serves its own, each agency serves a purpose, but moving in the same direction, we can cover all of our basic needs for the city for economic development. So again, if the city commission asks us to do it, we will look into it, certainly. But my recommendation for now, again, would be to really just all work together, and have our strengths, and then have other agencies cover our weaknesses, and then and be one team.
I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, so I'm actually asking this question here, that there's going to be a $1 to $2 million shortfall in the city's budget
Mhm.
next year. Is that actually the case, and what is the city looking to do to help fill those holes?
That currently that is correct. If you talk about if the city continues to spend as it spends this year, there would be that shortfall. So we've already started our budget process. We've cut back significantly already on our proposed budget, reduced some of our costs there. There's some positions we've already combined. There's some other positions we probably won't fill in the next year or two to help meet that gap. As for increasing revenue, that's going to be up to the city commission how they want to handle that. We will probably still spend somewhat of a deficit this year, but my goal, at least to propose to the commission, is to kind of ease the fall until we get out of the current financial situation we're in. The good news is we know what our crunch is, and it's kind of threefold. And then I drew a blank, of course, answering that question. But no, the we're using general fund money to support our Parks and Recreation fund. And then we are using CIP money to cover, again, Parks and Recreation Fund. And then the third issue, why am I drawing a blank on this? I'll come back to it.
Okay.
But the problem we're facing is, oh yeah, debt payoff. Thank you. Roberto is going to be screaming at me hearing this. We have a bunch of projects that we have taken debt on to pay for, and so in the next few years, those debt payments are going to gradually increase. Before basically after about 5 years, then they're going to fall off significantly. So once we get all that debt paid off, then we have a huge windfall, so to speak, of money that we will expect to come in that we won't be paying towards debt that we can use towards other things. So instead of using general obligation funds to cover the recreation fund, we can use those general obligation or general fund money to support some of these other resources. So the goal here again would be to kind of ease up the nosedive and then kind of climb back out over the next 4 or 5 years. So as long as we make smart decisions, the city's going to be okay. We're not in a financial crisis by any means, but we just need to tighten the belt like everybody's doing right now. I think, like many organizations, the city got lulled into a sense of security during and right after COVID, right? Because during COVID, you had like nobody was spending their money on anything, and so they had a bunch of money, saved up, so to speak. So then in the meantime, the federal government was sending in all this funding to organizations. And then after COVID, people went out and spent all their money for the next couple of years because they had a bunch of money to spend. And so the sales tax revenue looked really good. And so I think we got lulled into a false sense of security there. Now, 4, 5, 6 years after COVID, that sales tax revenue just isn't there anymore, and it's continuing to decline. So that's where our shortfall is.
Last year during the budget, I don't want to say crisis either, but when Pat was doing the budget as
Mm-hmm.
the interim city manager, he had proposed the possibility of closing the pool downtown
Mm-hmm.
and the fine arts theater downtown. Are those still on the table? Are we looking at losing some of our services? Is that potentially going to happen? Or
We have not had those conversations as of yet. We still have several significant meetings to have with the city commission where things would get discussed, but we're not proposing that now. To Pat's defense, there, I don't think he was necessarily proposing that. He was just saying, "Here's what services we would lose,
sure.
on the current track." So we haven't, again, our current proposal is not to reduce any of those services or to cut them. We need to obviously find creative ways to meet the gap, but I think we've got a great team to do that, and we'll figure it out.
And Chief Kitchens is by all means he's the police chief,
Sure.
and I'm sure he gave all his effort to be the
Yeah.
interim city manager. Something I when I spoke with him that he didn't really want to do, but felt like he could do to help out until obviously we found the solution. So
I've never seen somebody so happy to give up power. Yes, he was very thrilled to go back to being the police chief, but he did a great job for sure. Yeah.
did the most of what he had for
Yeah.
sure. Um, as we look at the future, the coming year, is there anything that you want to highlight? Anything really excited about that the city is going to be doing that you want to put out there? I know there's with Camp Leavenworth,
Mhm.
there's a big announcement there that's been made in a couple of areas. You want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we announced our headliner at the State of the City. So the Gin Blossoms, '90s alt rock band. I tell people, if you're Gen X or kind of earlier uh, uh, millennial, excuse me, earlier millennial, which what I am, then you probably know who they are. If you don't know who they are, then you know their songs, and so you've heard it before. And I think for a town like Leavenworth, they're going to be a good draw. They have a huge following. I think so. We'll get a lot of out of town visitors to come and see them. I think it's going to be great. Penny and her team and Christy at the CVB staff, they really work hard on that festival. I think I'm excited. I'm excited for my first one to see how it goes and go from there. I know there's some controversy over the festival, and the city commission hears that and understands it. They want to do what's best for the city and make it as successful as they can. We are back to the downtown. We met with downtown business owners a couple weeks ago, and that was one of their concerns: is how do downtown businesses benefit from Camp Leavenworth? And we're really going to work and try to find some solutions there to bring visitors to the downtown and spend some money down there as well.
Yeah, in the past, I think back when it was Buffalo Bill Cody days, that was a big draw.
Yeah.
There was carnivals downtown. They blocked off the
Hmm.
street. You had to walk up and down the street, and usually it was Delaware. But then you had Cherokee and Shawnee who got very little traffic, and so that always kind of felt left out. So I wasn't real crazy about everything being kind of limited to just the community center last year
Right.
because it's such a small space and we have such a large downtown. Um, and it just made it seem very packed.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see what you guys do this year. I think it's gonna be really exciting. Loved it last year. I got my peaceful shirt from my boy Drake down there, so I was really excited about that.
Okay.
So I want to shout out to Drake and his peaceful brand and international clothiers. So,
There you go.
um, anything else you want to talk about that the city's doing that you just want to throw out there? I know the plaza has been a big draw. Is there anything you
Mhm.
can tell us about that?
I can tell you we're having active conversations with somebody who's interested in redeveloping that. I don't. We're still very early in the stages, but and we're not. I know people just see that nothing is going on there, and they don't see all the conversations that happen in the background. But we're not ignoring the problem. We would very much like to see that redeveloped, and we're working with some great people to see that happen. Again, always looking to fill the industrial property, the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park. We've had a couple of interested parties. We deal with the biggest issues we deal with that property. A is the branches houses that are just to the west of that, and we certainly want to do our best to respect the people that live there, and we want to work with them to make them happy with whatever ends up going in there. But we have to deal with the reality of that the business park was there first. It was built as an industrial park. It is going to be an industrial park. There's going to be industrial development there. Again, happy to come and work with the residents of the branches to find a solution that works for everybody. But there will be development there, and so a lot of businesses shy away from that because they're worried about the public outcry. And we have to work through that. The other issue we have is we're not connected to a major highway. And so and I know Lansing gets the opposite complaints that we get. Lansing hears there's not enough streetlights on 7th K7, and we hear there's too many streetlights on K7 because every time a truck is stopped at a stoplight, that's money spent. And so, understandably, that's a regional solution that we will have to fix.
A park right next to another park. Smart idea? Not smart idea?
What do you? Oh, the two
The
business
they're right
parks.
next to each other. I always thought that was kind of odd. I mean, it seemed like there's other places that could have gone.
Sure. So I can't speak to the history behind that. Obviously, the park's been here for many years, not many, but several years now. As to, I can tell you that the Gary Carlson Park was built for smaller industrial scale. So they have multiple kind of small tenants. The Leavenworth Park is really built more for a big fish, so to speak, or two big fish, two medium-sized fish, something like that. So the draw there is they're advertising for different tenants. So hopefully we get that broad spectrum of industrial growth.
Awesome. We're going to kind of shift gears now to something a little bit lighter. Kind of what's on your mind. What have you been thinking about lately? I will take the pressure off and I'll go first.
Okay, great.
I'm an avid Royals fan, I think, like
Mhm.
many of our listeners, and I am constantly amazed at how we can win 18 games one time, and then next minute we're losing games and we're losing position in the division. I don't know
Mhm.
if you're a huge Royals
I am.
fan, but
Yes. Yeah.
would definitely like to see Jack Caglione up here
Yes.
hitting home runs
It,
for
it,
us.
it just, I was actually just listening to sports radio on my way in here, and they were just replaying the sound of the ball coming off his bat on a home run. And it's just like a firework. It's really impressive to hear. Yes. I think we're all excited for Jack, right? And I think the answer is he may be part of the answer to the issue the Royals have is that the offense is very hot and cold. And so, our pitching's been doing great, but if you're counting on one or two runs to win a game, that's not a great recipe for success. But they've shown they can score 8 to 11 runs, but they're just not consistent with it. So
They don't have, and I was talking with my son the other day. Did you see the play where India gets spiked by Contreras?
yep,
I forget who they're playing now. I just remember the play. The 2015 Royals, they're out there brawling with
right,
that team over that. Somebody's getting hit with a pitch.
yeah,
Not saying that's right.
right,
Sportsmanship's very important, but they had that scrappy fight to them.
right.
That this team is just they're like that really nice guy that's out there playing baseball, and they just don't have that scrappiness.
Right. I think you may be onto that. I mean, there maybe is kind of a passion or a swagger there that's missing. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, no, I agree with you.
Matt Contreras, should he stay or should he go?
Oh, I think he should stay. I think he's doing a great job. I mean, and I honestly, I think general manager, Piccolo. I think he's doing well as well. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely think he should stay. Not a big fan of Cotrera though.
Oh, really? Okay. Why's
Yeah,
that?
those one-run games. I
Okay.
mean, you know, you got to go to Ursig. You got to go to. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that Estevez really should be your closer. Ursig should be
Sure.
your closer for sure. But some of those one-run games, or you're down by 2 runs, and he runs somebody out there that gives it away. I'm just scratching your head.
That's fair. I'm still pointing my finger at the offense, personally. I mean, we shouldn't be in a 2-run game or a 1-run game that frequently, anyways. So swing a bat better, and then this would be
Completely different conversation.
yeah, yeah.
What about you? What's on your mind lately?
What's on my mind? Trying to shift away from sports. Uh, well, so I'm actually taking a trip to Colorado here
Okay.
in a couple weeks. So that's my family gets together and goes to Colorado once a year. I have an older sister and her family. They live in Boston, so it's my one time a year that our whole family is together.
Okay.
I've got a 2.5-year-old son. She's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old son, and so the cousins get together, and grandparents are there, and it's just we go to Estes Park every year. It's probably one of my favorite things we do now. As I get into my adulthood.
Are you an avid skier?
No, we don't ski. We don't.
No?
We don't ski. We don't do snow sports. We just go up and stay in a cabin at Estes Park, and we just hang out as a family. Now we do outdoor stuff like hiking and go picnic by the river and things like that. But my family was never a skiing family. I think both of my parents had bad experiences when they were young adults and just never got us into it. So we never did it as kids. So I never learned to do it as an adult. But
Yeah, I've never skied myself. One thing I did forget to ask you about, and I think we planned this around your trip to Washington. How did that go?
Yeah, so we should have talked about that.
Can you just give us the highlights real quick, and then maybe we can save it for your next opportunity on here?
So as Mayor Pittman and I went, we went on behalf of the city, and we lobbied some of the city issues that we're facing here. Actually, those were things we should have talked about here at the meeting or at the interview. We should have discussed those. So we lobbied basically. We spoke with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Installations, Energy, and Environment. I believe I got those. I got the 3 words right. I don't know if I got the order right. And we met with him and his staff at the Pentagon. Then we also met with Roger Marshall's staff and Senator Marshall's staff and Senator Moran's staff. We were going to meet with Senator Moran himself, but he had an event where they were honoring an all-black women's regiment in World War II, which was really cool. But he got held up there, so we ended up meeting with staff as well. So we lobbied. What we asked them for is additional funding for the Frontier Army Museum, which is currently on Fort Leavenworth. There's a plan to move it outside the Sherman Gate, which is where the visitor center is right now. That'd be about $100 million project. And so they're looking for $75 million of that to be government funded, and whether that's federal, state, whatever. So we were asking them to consider that. We think it'd be a really great draw to the city. Speaking of the Sherman Gate, our partners at Fort Leavenworth have said they would like to redevelop that gate. They initially had some funding, but the design or the scope of the project exceeded their budget costs, so it got withdrawn, and they would love to see that rebuilt so they can reuse it to reduce some of the congestion at the main gate there. We also lobbied on behalf of repurposing the old Leavenworth facility, Leavenworth prison. They don't have any plans yet on what they're going to do with the old prison. And we've heard a couple of things, maybe a federal agency training center or maybe a museum, something like that. There was some funding out there for a study, and we were kind of looking into where the progress was on that study. Last we heard, the funding was still there, but I don't think the study's been completed yet. We're also looking 8 to 10 years into the future for the city of Leavenworth. One of the things that keeps me up at night is our wastewater facility, which is where we treat our sewage. That facility is 50 plus years old. A lot of the equipment is rotted or just not working properly. We spend millions of dollars a year maintaining it. We did a study a couple years ago looking into what it would cost to maintain the facility over the next 10 to 15 years, and it was pretty much the same cost as building a new facility. So, and we're looking at, so we were up there basically, lobbying on behalf of the city and saying, hey, we serve all of our federal partners here. We serve the fort, we serve the prison, we serve the VA. We have a huge federal population here that our wastewater treatment facility serves. Any funding we could get to help build that facility would be a huge benefit to this community, because it would reduce the cost to the Leavenworth taxpayers to keep that facility going. And so we've started the early process of getting a design in place for a new facility. Part of that design will be, the equipment that we've scheduled to replace over the next 5 to 10 years. Can we hold off on replacing those things and save some money, and instead hold that money back for down payment and lower the cost of the burden of the taxpayer on that? So all of that we're out there lobbying for. I thought it went really well. Everyone was very receptive. The staffs were all very friendly. We did get in touch with the Army about what's called a DCIP grant, Defense Community Infrastructure Program, where they provide funding for facilities just like that, and they offered to assist us with that application.
Wow.
So understand, I just want to touch real briefly on, we understand the concern that some people have with us going out to Washington, D.C. and saying, why are you guys going out there? Why are you spending taxpayer dollars doing that? The answer to that question is simply because everybody else is doing it. And what I tell, this is true at an individual level and at an organizational level. And what I always tell my employees is, if you don't advocate for yourself, nobody is going to advocate for you. And so if Leavenworth's not at the table, if Leavenworth isn't going to these staff, the senators and the representatives, and saying, here's Leavenworth's priorities, then some other community that is doing that is going to get their name in the ring. They're going to get what they're asking for. And that's great. We want everybody in Kansas, right, to succeed and to get what they need. But we need to be advocating on behalf of ourselves, because nobody's going to advocate for us unless we do it. So that's why we go out there. We take that trip very seriously. We use our time wisely, and we really do our best to represent Leavenworth in the best possible light, and to show why our priorities are so important, especially at the federal level, because we have so many federal partners here in Leavenworth that we really want to keep and embrace their, the role that they play here at the city.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We appreciate
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
doing that.
Glad to come here.
Thanks for being on our special guest this week.
Absolutely.
It's been a great conversation. We definitely like to have you back sometime soon.
Would love to.
That's the end of our session for this week. Look forward to next week when we'll have, I think we're having somebody that's running for lieutenant governor next week.
All right.
So we'll look forward to that. Thanks, everybody.